I was browsing Reddit over my cornflakes this morning, as one does, and saw that Jellyfin version 12 release candidate 1 is now available. Now make no mistake, this is a big release, but maybe not in the way that you expected. This isn't the kind of update where you'll open Jellyfin and immediately think, wow, look at all these massive new features. It's more workmanlike than that. And this release kind of feels like where the Jellyfin team have been scratching their own itches for a while, like just looking at the foundations and looking at the performance, library scanning, database cleanup, improving APIs, that kind of stuff. And it doesn't often show up on the surface, that kind of work. And those are the kinds of releases that matter a lot in the long run. So first, let's look at why it's called Jellyfin 12. For years now, Jellyfin has used this 10.x versioning scheme. So the current stable version is 10.11. And you might reasonably expect the next major version to be 10.12. But instead of that, they're dropping the version 10 prefix and moving to a simpler versioning scheme. So basically, version 11 never happened, or depending on how you look at it, I suppose, we were already sort of on version 11, and now they're just calling the next one version 12. Regardless, Jellyfin version 12, release candidate 1, is now available. For normal users, this changes pretty much nothing. It just kind of makes the version numbers a bit less weird moving forward. Now, before we get into the nice stuff, we need to talk about upgrading because this one is important. Now, if you're on version 10.10.7 or later, the release docs say that you can upgrade directly to version 12. The Jellyfin team also recommends removing repository plugins before migrating, not the built-in stuff, but anything third-party from sort of like a third-party plugin repository, because plugins will need to update themselves and they'll need some time to catch up with the database and API changes. So the safest approach is to remove them, upgrade, and then slowly re-add them once compatibility for each plugin becomes clearer. After the upgrade, you also need to run a full library scan, and that's not optional, they say. That's because alternative versions of media may need to be rebuilt, and the first scan is likely to take longer than usual, according to the release notes. Now, the big story about version 12 for me, once you've got the upgrade complete, of course, is performance. Jellyfin 12 has had a lot of work done around the database and library operations in general. So if you have a large server with lots of movies, TV shows, home movies, music, and all the other stuff that we definitely keep perfectly organized all the time, you should hopefully see snappier browsing and fewer moments where Jellyfin kinds of feel like it's kind of thinking about its purpose in life. There's also a full path-based check across library items to clean up leftovers. So if you've renamed things, deleted files, replaced files, that kind of thing, Jellyfin should now be better at cleaning that up for you. Library management has also had quite a bit of attention too. There's better support for triple-digit episode numbers, unknown seasons and provider IDs in folder and file names, as well as curly braces and parentheses in past attributes too, and more language filters for audio and subtitles to boot. Really nice little changes. But one feature I'm particularly pleased to see is multiple versions for episodes. Movies have had version handling for some time now, so like you've got a standard cut and a director's cut. But TV episodes, this could be really useful if you've got different qualities, or you've got a broadcast version versus a streaming version or a DVD rip, different from a Blu-ray rip, that kind of thing. Maybe some deeply cursed situation involving 3 different encodes of the same episode that you'll swear you'll clean up one day. Well, Jellyfin 12 should handle that better too. Playback and transcoding also got some useful improvements, and Jellyfin 12 brings an upgrade to FFmpeg 8.1, along with performance improvements for CUDA transposing, OpenCL scaling, tone mapping, and Mali GPU tone mapping as well. There's also potential fixes for audio-video desync in HLS with better Dolby Vision Profile 5 HLS compatibility, and better handling for subtitles so that styles don't get mangled unnecessarily. Now, the web interface has gotten some attention as well. The modern layout is now the default experimental mode, and there are updated views for music videos, mixed media, collections, playlists, and books. There's also one of those "Are you still watching?" prompt when you fall asleep on the couch, definitely not just watching Top Gear reruns. Small things like that I just absolutely love. Now, books are probably the sleeper story in this release, to be honest with you. Jellyfin is clearly putting some more serious effort into books, comics, and audiobooks. If you've heard me rant about Plex over the years, I like audiobook support. There's improved support for formats like EPUB, PDF, There's a big long list. Metadata can now be extracted from OPF, EPUBs, and a bunch of other files too. And there's a new OpenLibrary provider. So you can get book file names parsed better. Authors are connected with their metadata more clearly to the correct books. And audiobook chapters are now extracted into the API, although of course client support will be maturing over time. There are also API changes that matter for clients, plugins, and third-party tools as well. So there are deprecated authorization methods no longer being allowed by default. And Jellyfin is making it clear that if an endpoint is no longer listed in Swagger, clients cannot and should not rely on it. Long term, that's a good thing, but in the short term, it's going to mean that some of the older clients, scripts, and plugins you might rely on, they may well break. So this really leads me to the next question of, should you upgrade? Probably not yet. It's certainly not if this is your main Jellyfin server and your family depends on it. I'd definitely wait a little bit in that case. But if you have a test server, sure, why not? Give it a go. If you've got a particularly large library with lots of TV shows, multiple versions, audiobooks, etc., Jellyfin 12 will probably be a meaningful release for you. But just make sure you take a backup, you do full library scan, you do all the boring stuff that they recommend that you do in the release notes as well. It's not the loudest release in the world, but for a self-hosted media server, does it have to be? We just want it to be around for a long time, doing its thing quietly in the corner, right? So if you want to find out more about how to build your own Jellyfin server, we're in the middle of Jellyfin June, and I'll link to that playlist up here in the corner. Also, you want to build a perfect media server that's just behind me over there running Jellyfin, you could do that too. So all that's left for me to say is until next time, thank you so much for watching. I've been Alex from KTZ Systems.